Good day. It's Jackson, and welcome back to another one of these good old things. Just gonna go straight into it. I just finished watching the Game 3 of the NBA Finals. Heat absolutely played out of their minds. I mean, more like truthfully, Jimmy Butler played absolutely out of his mind. I've never seen the man play with such purpose. I knew it was in there. I've always been a big Jimmy fan, but I never expected him to be able to pull out a 40-point triple-double while shooting 70% from the field. Come on. The man's good, but this is superstar numbers. I mean, I've never had Jimmy as a superstar. I've always had him as an all-star and a top-quality wing player in the league, but my God, these are superstar numbers. These are finals MVP numbers. And he just made this Lakers team look silly. I mean, there were massive stretches of that game where the Lakers just plain old sucked. Their defense looked sluggish as hell. They had more turnovers in a quarter than they have the entire season. I mean, in the first 6 minutes, they had 6 turnovers. It was painful to watch at times. And then the Heat were just making them pay consistently across the floor. And what I noticed was that this Heat team, they have the ability to outplay the Lakers. And it's more to do with it's a bit of a cliche, but they just want it more. And you could see that during this game. I mean, you had Marcus Morris being shy to shoot a lot of the time. He definitely picked up his confidence later in the game, but early on he was in the corner with the ball and he'd just sort of pump fake and then pass it when he was wide open. You had LeBron James doing some real boneheaded shots, especially at the end. I mean, he shot 1 for 5 from three-point line, and a couple of them he was a fair few steps back from the line, and he just heaved it. And it didn't really make much sense to me. I'm sitting there being like, mate, you're a driver and a passer. Don't try to be hitting these big shots, especially when you're down by like 9. Go for the smart play. Don't go for the big time play. But then you had this Heat team just made Anthony Davis, and I'm going to guess that this was Spo's master plan, that he had Kelly Olynyk sit on the perimeter a lot of the time. And Kelly Olynyk is a player that you can't really leave open. And then for some reason, which I still don't really get, Frank Vogel only played Dwight Howard 15 minutes when he has proven time and time and again that he is a phenomenal player to have in this series. He's a great energy guy. He makes them pay for the size difference. He cleans the offensive glass like any of the best. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, the first play, he was able to make Myers Leonard look like a high schooler, just leaped over him for a real easy alley-oop. He's able to be a player that can go and guard like Kelly Olynyk and these big guys on the perimeter whilst keeping Anthony Davis, or you can swap them around, have Dwight in the paint, but they didn't have anyone really in the paint, and it allowed the Miami Heat to just basically bully them at the rim. And I mean, they shot, 76.5% from the rim, like around the rim. And that's just, like, come on. Mine short mid-ranges, 66%. Anthony Davis was just almost a non-factor that game. There were stretches where I didn't even notice he was on the court. And when you're an MVP caliber player, when you're someone that people were quite literally yelling from the rooftops, you should have been Defensive Player of the Year, you have to do more. You can't play with such little purpose in the finals. And it almost felt like this Lakers team were just resting on their laurels, that they just expected to win because Bam and Dragic were out. This Heat team has proven that they're not a sum of their parts. They're more of they have a floor, and regardless of who's out there, that floor doesn't move. And we saw today that they were able to push off that floor and hit ceilings that no one really expected them to have, especially with Bam and Dragic sitting out. This Heat team is one of the grittiest, one of the sort of most well put together teams that I've seen in a while. I mean, every single piece on this team complements the others. And whilst they do have a few weak links, it's more like Duncan Robinson's not the greatest defender, Tyler Hero's not the greatest defender, Jay Crowder is a very streaky shooter. You have all these sort of flaws, but there's not something like Anthony Davis is a non-factor. You don't get this very often from this Heat team. Everyone plays their role. Everyone plays it well. Whereas this Lakers team, I mean, basically just today, they just didn't really seem like they wanted it. And I mean, at the end of the game where there was the shot clock violation and there was like 0.4 of a second and they had to just play it because it's the rules, LeBron was already halfway out the building. Like, be a good sport. Like, it just shows that he just wasn't in it. I mean, he had a great game. I mean, he almost had another triple-double and he's just putting up monster stats and he's flying up the all-time leaderboards. But you need to have a little bit more purpose while you're out there. And this Heat team, every single possession that they had, there was purpose behind every single movement of the ball. And you just didn't feel that from the Lakers. You felt like they were sort of expecting to win because there's no Bam, no Dragic, and they have LeBron and AD. And it just didn't go out that way. I mean, they didn't shoot all that great from three. LeBron definitely didn't shoot great from three. You had guys like Kuzma was stepping up. I mean, he was still absolutely tragic defensively, but he stepped up. He was able to hit his corner threes, which is basically all he can do. You had Marcus Morris playing average defense, and then you had Caldwell Pope just being made look stupid by Jimmy. Yeah. It's so frustrating watching teams like the Lakers. Now, whilst they're a very top-heavy team, the bottom of it, like the bulk of the players, are all experienced players, like experienced vets outside of maybe Caruso and Kuzma. But Caruso's already shown that he's got that ability to play his role and play it well. And then Kuzma shows that he can just shoot his corner threes, and that's all you really need him to do. But like Rondo played well, but he was another one of those players that you could see him occasionally, but a lot of the time you sort of just forgot he was out there. It seemed to be a lot of the players out there, you sort of forgot they were there outside of like LeBron and maybe a handful of players from other players. And this Heat team, like I've got vivid memories of Jimmy driving to the hole, calling about 60,000 fouls. You've got Duncan Robinson moving so slippery off screens, trying to get the ball from Kelly Olynyk. You had Tyler Hero still being an absolute killer. You even had Solomon Hill pop in there for a second. He had some fairly good, impactful plays, whereas the Lakers just didn't really have that. And it's pretty unacceptable considering. But I mean, at the end of the day, I still had the Lakers winning. I think that they will rebound from this. I'm not looking too much into all of this that happened in this game. It was just a bad game. Like, there's no other way around it. And it took the Lakers having one of the worst games that I've seen from them all season, and then Jimmy Butler having the greatest game of his career, and then every single one on that team playing well within their roles and within the system to beat this Lakers team. And I think it was definitely a lot more to do with them having their backs against the wall and playing with a lot more desperation. And when Bam and Dragic come back, that desperation is going to sort of dry up and it's not going to be there. So I do definitely have the Lakers coming back, especially from this, especially from how you saw LeBron took it quite personally, that they're going to come back and they're going to have very strong outings. And it's going to be probably Lakers in 4 with, I'm going to guess, especially after this game, it's going to be LeBron James Finals MVP. The man's just been so consistent. But yeah, I am glad that the Heat actually did make this an interesting series a little bit now. Like, this is a little bit of a bite, a little bit of extra seasoning on this series, because I was a bit concerned that it would just be a sweep, especially with the two very key players being out. But oh well. I mean, I'm going to leave it at that. Let me know what you guys thought of the game. Let me know if you disagree with anything I said, or if you agreed with anything I said. That's what I definitely like to hear. People agreeing with me. It's always good. But don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. I mean, I'd love to have more people on the journey with me doing this. So yeah, just let me know. If you want to get into contact with me personally, and you don't want to comment it down below, you can email me. It's at justanotherNBApage@gmail.com. That's justanotherNBApage@gmail.com. I'll see you guys in the next one, and hope you guys have a good day.